What does forgiveness look like? Number one, to forgive someone is to identify with them. It's to say, listen, what you did is terrible. It may even be something I've never done what you did. Maybe you physically assaulted me and I'm not a violent person. Maybe you lied about me and I'm always honest. Maybe you stole something from me and I have integrity. But I identify with what you have done. I identify with you because I also am a sinner. You know what happens if we don't identify with them? See, there's something that the world calls taking the high road. You cuss me out in the parking lot after church. Let's say we have some disagreement and you just throw every bad name at me in the book and I take it. The world says, oh, he took the high road. Well, good for you. And that is good. That's better than returning anger for anger. But if I do that, but I don't identify with you, I walk away feeling superior. I walk away feeling like, well, I'm righteous and they're evil. I speak good words. They speak evil words. See, if we don't identify with people, our forgiveness turns into self-righteousness. But if you are able to say, I may not have committed the exact sin that you're committing right now, but I know I'm a sinner. I know I need forgiveness. I need grace. I need the blood of Christ just as much as you do. That's where forgiveness really starts. It starts with understanding that we are sinners too, that we also need grace, that we also need mercy. But the second one, and here's the heart of forgiveness, the second aspect of forgiveness is absorb the cost. That's what forgiveness really is. It's when you take what has been done to you and you refuse to make them pay. I had a coworker at my previous church who'd been on staff there for years when I got there. And I asked him, don't you want to take a sabbatical? See, good churches like this one that want to be good to their ministers, they give them a sabbatical every 7 years and they get the time away to just go away and pray and learn and grow and get refreshed. And I asked him, I said, man, you've been here forever. Why don't you take a sabbatical? He said, I did once. And the first week of my sabbatical, one of my neighbors lost control of their car driving through our neighborhood, ran up onto my lawn, into my house. I woke up and there was a car sitting in my living room. Destroyed the whole living room. That was the first week of my sabbatical. The rest of the sabbatical was just me dealing with insurance and builders and my neighbor. And he said it was awful, so I'm never doing it again. But you know what he told me? He said, I was mad at them for what they'd done, but I didn't make them pay. I had insurance, yes, but there was a big deductible. There was a lot of cash out of pocket. And I could have gone after them. I could have gone and threatened them and said, you will pay me that money or you will at least split it. I could have hired a lawyer and filed suit, but I didn't do that. That's forgiveness. It's absorbing the cost of what someone else did to you. If you want an example that's not so financial, so cut and dry, how about this? Imagine that someone at your work or your school gossips about you. You find out through somebody else that every time you're not around, this person's saying bad things about you. This person's making fun of some aspect of your character that you are sensitive about. This person's spreading lies about you. This person is doing everything they can to run you down in the eyes of all your friends. And you feel hurt. You feel humiliated. Every time you go back to work or school, you feel like, now everybody's laughing at me because of what this one person did. Now that's real. And that's happened to some of you. Forgiveness means, I know some things I could say about that person, but I'm not going to. I know some accusations I could make against them. I could hurt their reputation too, but I'm not going to. It means when people come up to you and say, hey, he's a jerk, isn't he? You're like, I don't have anything against him. You refuse to participate in tearing down this person's reputation. Not only that, you go further than that. You don't even hold hatred in your heart. You say, how can that be possible? Well, what you do is you realize every time you feel angry about it, every time you look at them and you feel that tension in your stomach, like, gosh, I hope you die. Every time you find yourself in the middle of one of those imaginary conversations, where you're telling them off in front of everyone and you're saying all the right things. Every time that happens, you recognize that's the devil planting anger and hatred in your heart. And you say, okay, devil, if that's what you're going to do, every time you do that to me, I'm going to take that as a cue to pray for this person. And I'm going to pray that good things would happen to them, that God would bless them, and that God would draw them to himself so that they can be forgiven, so that they can know that he loves them. Because if I keep doing that, the devil's going to leave me alone. Because the last thing in the world he wants is for me to pray for my enemy. And you know what's great about that? You don't have to be, quote unquote, over it to do that. You can still be angry. You can still hurt in your heart and feel sorrow and forgive at the same time. Forgiveness often will be a process where every day you wake up, you think about that person and your stomach churns and you go, okay, I guess I better pray for them again. I guess I better pray for grace and strength to the next time I see them, to treat them with kindness, to not bring this up. That's absorbing the cost. Because you're paying the cost of what they did to you. You're not paying them back. And again, you don't have to wait until you're not angry anymore, because you can do that right now. In fact, what I have learned in my own life is when you choose to absorb the cost and actively forgive, even while you're still angry, even while you're still hurt, the anger and the hurt go away faster. It's just like if you've ever cooked with a pressure cooker, you're finished and you want to open that lid, first you got to let go of that pressure, right? You push the button and that pressure is released. And you hear that steam coming out, and you have to wait until that knob drops. And then you know the pressure's all gone. Releasing the pressure in your own life that destroys so much starts with you absorbing the cost and forgiving, choosing to take that step, that courageous step, to say, I'm going to start on the journey to forgiving this person. You absorb the cost like Christ did for you. Then there's a third step, and that is liberate them from guilt. Forgiveness is forever. One of the hard parts about marriage, if you're married, is that every day, or at least every week, every day, your partner does something you don't like, right? Every day, there's something you have to forgive. But the really hard part, because if you're a mature person, you realize fighting all the time doesn't help anything, so you absorb the cost often, and they do something that irritates you, and you're like, I'm just not going to respond, and that's good. But what do? You store it up in your heart. So that when you finally blow your stack, you can say, well, let me tell you what you did last Thursday. And can I tell you how many times you've said this? How many times you've done this? 1 Corinthians 13 tells us, love keeps no record of wrongs. Aren't you glad that when God forgives us, he throws it away? He doesn't bring it up again. You liberate them from the guilt. That's what true forgiveness means. It also means you're open to reconciliation. And I will say, reconciliation is different than forgiveness. Because forgiveness just takes you. You can forgive somebody, even if they hate your guts, you can forgive them. But for reconciliation, it takes both parties being involved. And we'll talk about that in a future message. But true forgiveness means you're willing to go that route. You're willing to walk that road and do your part to bring about reconciliation, to make the relationship what it should be.